Welcome to Mechanical Advantage Garage. I'm Kerry, and today we are starting part one of What the Heck Did I Do at Mecum? Moto Guzzi edition. Oh, that's backwards on the film. Huh. Yeah, so this is going to be the first part of the series where I try to figure out if I really got a good deal or not at Mecum. I think I did as of right now. But it's always good to be scientific about this, or quasi-scientific, or some kind of tific about this. So what we're going to do, plus it's entertainment, by the way. What we're going to do is I'm going to go through this bike. I'm going to tell you what it is and show you some of the cool features about it. We're going to evaluate its condition, and we're going to talk about some things, and maybe I'll fix a few things and make it run, since it was advertised as a running motorcycle. It literally said it in the Mecum brochure, which is highly unusual. Usually they don't let you say that it's running because they don't really want you testing bikes at Mecum's auctions. So anyway, let's get on to a walkthrough of this motorcycle and see what it is we actually have. So the motorcycle we have in question here today is the 1987 Moto Guzzi 1000 SP2 that I purchased, and Dad and I purchased at Mecum in the 2025 Las Vegas auction in January. And these are very interesting bikes. First of all, if you're not familiar with Moto Guzzi, they are an Italian brand. They have a falcon as their motto. I don't know. Some people call it an eagle. I call it a falcon. It's not the motto. I'm sorry. It's their emblem. You can actually see it on the new ones. They still use it. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a falcon or eagle. I believe the company was started by a pair of fighter pilots. My understanding of the history of Moto Guzzi is a little dodgy. But I do know some of these bikes. In fact, this bike is what they call a Tanti framed bike. The frame was designed by a man named Lino Tanti for Moto Guzzi, specifically to homologate it for racing. And they ended up using it from 72, the big block Guzzi Tanti frames, they ended up using until the mid 2000s. I want to say maybe even into the 2010s for a lot of the California bikes and the cruisers, the Jackals, things like that. The small block Guzzi Tanti frame, which is slightly different in this pivot area here, and I can show you in a second, they still use today. My V7 Special from 2023 has a small block Guzzi Tanti frame. But the Tanti frame was used on such legendary bikes as the Le Mans 1, which is considered one of the prettiest motorcycles ever made, next to a Ducati 900 SS or a Vincent. Some features about it: the V-twin with the cylinders that stick out into the wind. V-twin, it's not an L-twin like a Ducati, where the cylinders go forward and one of them's laying down. And it's not a boxer engine like a BMW. I have a BMW over here, and you can see the cylinders are horizontally opposed. These, I believe they're 90 degree, they may be 60 degree. I can't remember what the angle is of the cylinders on a Moto Guzzi. I should really look this stuff up before I come around and start to talk about it. But yeah, it's the cylinders come out the sides here. Very interesting. These are shaft drive bikes. I don't know that any Moto Guzzis were ever chain drive or belt drive or anything, except for maybe the little mopeds that they made. And I can't remember if the Bacon Slicer Falcons, the 500 Falcons, if they're chain drive or not. But for the most part, Guzzis tend to be shaft drive. They have quite a following. They're very interesting motorcycles, right? And now, what does the SP mean? Well, we have here the the badging 1,000. It's supposed to be 1,000 cc. I think it's actually 949. It's really a 950 but Guzzi rounded up to 1,000. It may actually be bigger, maybe 985. I don't remember. But the SP is Super Protezione. I can't speak Italian. It translates in English to Super Protection. Now, the SP1 had this huge batwing fairing up here at the front that would come out like to right about here, cover up the bars, and it blocked the wind really well. And these were the first real sport touring motorcycles from Moto Guzzi. The second generation of these bikes, they came out, I think, with the SP in 78, and then it ran to 84 or 85 as a Series 1, and then the Series 2 came out, I believe, 85 or 86, and then this is an 87, and it went to 88 before becoming the SP3. And the SP2 had a big bulbous, like all around here, full fairing, which this is supposed to have, but clearly it does not, actually. It has this tiny aftermarket 6-inch LED headlight that, I'm not super thrilled at. And it's got this unknown fairing, which to me looks kind of cool, but is absolutely not super protection from the wind, as you can imagine. It also appears to be off a different bike, as it was one time painted red, as this paint chip will attest to. But, and I think it's fiberglass, yeah. But all in all, it's not a bad bike. This happens to be an American import 1987, and one of the ways you can tell is if you look in here at the data plate. Let's see if I can get in here. There is a lot of digits. You'll have to take my word for it. The data plate here we go, has a super long amount of digits on it, and that is because in 87, that's when the U.S. went to standardizing motorcycle VINs and including nation codes and all of that fun stuff. So this bike confirms itself to be one of the U.S. market SP2s imported for 1987. Why is that important? Because according to the Guzzi internet, especially the Wild Goose forums, there were only about 214 Moto Guzzi SP2s imported into the U.S. So this makes it a fairly rare motorcycle. Does it make it valuable? I don't think they were that popular then. They sold way more Le Mans 3s and Le Mans 4s in that era. They also sold more G5s and Millets in that era, which are the other two bikes that share bodywork with this bike. So I think it was rare because it was undesirable. And now it's just an obscure piece of Guzzi history that maybe some collector will find interesting enough to, want to take off my hands. But the nice part about Guzzis being Italian motorcycles or European motorcycles in general is they tend to have better parts. What do I mean by that? Well, you have, I believe these are Marzocchi forks up front. Guzzi used Marzocchi forks on a lot of their bikes. These are Brembo F08 calipers. You find these on all of the best European bikes. These are the same calipers that are on my BMW R80 RT over there. And it is a dual disc front end, as you can see. You also find these on Lavertas. You find them on Ducatis. The Brembo F08 is kind of the standard great caliper of European and not British, but European motorcycling. And it has one in the back too, so it's a triple disc bike. I believe the SP1s were drum brake, but this has I don't know if you can see it right in here. There's another F08 caliper. And here's the Guzzi bird. So that's about the basics of what you need to know on it. So these were big sport touring motorcycles in an era when sport touring motorcycles were just becoming fashionable. Their number one competitor in this space was the BMW R80 and R100 RT. In fact, it'd probably be the R100 because 1000cc. And there really wasn't a smaller version of the SP. Oh, if you want to see what I mean by the Tanti frame, we can remove the cover, and you'll see here it's pretty much a straight frame rail underneath the seat here that goes all the way back to about here to attach the rear fender, and it connects in this pivot right here at the swing arm that then connects to directly to the headstock. So it really sort of ties together the headstock and the pivot, which is kind of the secret to a good handling motorcycle. Is you want the headstock and the swing arm pivot to be as connected as possible, right? And so you see this frame has this down tube here in parallel, this cross connection. But if we go out here to my V7, right, and this is a small block Guzzi, and it's not like Chevy and, with small blocks and big blocks where there's certain displacements in this size and certain displacements in this size. The small block is physically smaller, whereas the big block is physically bigger. This is an 850, and they had 850 big blocks too, so it's not really a displacement issue or thing because cylinders bolt on and off. Small blocks started as small displacement motorcycles. They were 350s, and then 400s, and then they just kept growing to 500, and then 750, and then 850, which is where they are now. But yeah, if you look here, they've modified the Lino Tanti frame a bit, but it's still that same front down section, and it's still a parallel down section here, but instead of connecting at the pivot, it uses the engine and the gear case, and this is actually the transmission right here, as a stressed member to finish the connection, right? There's some people that complain that the small block Guzzi frame doesn't handle as well as the big old Lino Tanti Guzzi frame. I think that's kind of horsepucky. I think they're just as good and just as capable, but they're interesting. I like to think of it, since I was making a Chevy analogy before, that it's this is now the difference between an LS small block and an old school 350. Whereas the big block Guzzi is more like an old Chevy 350, that's more like an LS 5.7, right? So, yeah. Some other interesting components, we have Koni shocks. I believe these are factory from Guzzi. Again, Brembo Masters here and here. So it's all Brembo brake components. High-end stuff. And here are your air forks. You can adjust them via air. It's an interesting bike, for sure. And one that I'm actually kind of happy to own. So it was my dad has always wanted a Moto Guzzi, and this was our opportunity to have a good old school Moto Guzzi. I had one already. I had a CX100 that was broken more than it ran, but overall, I don't think we did too terribly on it. So let's evaluate the condition and see where we're at. One of the unusual things about this bike for a Mecum bike is that it's filthy. So I don't know if you can see it here, but there is, dirt everywhere on this thing. Here we took the side cover off, and look at all the dust and grime that's sort of settled in here. There's just dirt everywhere on this bike, right? Now, everyone who goes to Mecum knows that clean sells. Right? Clean is where you get your numbers from. So they did do a little spit and polish on it to make it look kind of nice. But for the most part, this thing's kind of grimy. It could, it could stand to get polished up and clean. Which is part of what my rehabilitation is going to do. I'm going to do an extensive detailing on it. But there's some things we need to fix first. Right. Most notably, we got a broken spark plug here and all this other stuff. But I want to kind of start at the back here because, as you can see here, bike was last on the road 310. Now, does that mean it hasn't been used since 2010? Hard to say. This bike came out of the Hendrix collection, and Hendrix are they are collectors, but they are also bike resellers. They're at Mecum every year with a truckload of bikes offloading it. Some of them are fantastic, some of them not so much. This is one more of the not so much, but I believe they have dealer plates in Georgia. So although the bike was transferred to them and has a Georgia title that I got from the Hendrix collection, they could have been running this on a dealer plate. They could have been running it on any number of things that, people do when they collect large collections of motorcycles. The condition of this bike, I would say, is probably 5 out of 10 right now. And there's a lot of reasons why. So we can start from the back. There's a lot of paint missing here. There are turn signals missing. And the reason why the turn signals missing is because the bags are missing. One of the things we found on this side here was this big old, here, I don't know if you can see it, this big old trailer connection here, which indicates that this had aftermarket turn signals that went into bags. And here are the clipped connectors, because whenever someone took off the bags and sold them, they didn't put any new turn signals on. And it's the same way on this side here. There's wires all around. So we're going to have to we're going to take off this bag rack, and we're going to put on original signals, which would have gone in here. These are not factory reflectors. Somebody just found some, auto parts store reflectors and stuck them in the holes where the actual stock reflectors, stock signals would have come out of. So we're going to get rid of this bag system, which is a shame because it is actually a nice bag system. But I don't really like luggage on motorcycles. I don't tour anymore, and if I tour, it's on something else. But you can see there's like paint chipping everywhere here, and it's just filthy. There's a little bit of rust here, but one of the things you will notice is that this bike came out of Texas, and it is kind of rust-free. Usually you find like some spotting on the exhaust, especially on the bottom side of this, but no, nothing, right? One of the other nice features, I don't know if you can see this, but this has like a very pearl orange paint that if I took a polish to it, you can see it's got like schmutz and like scratches here. But if I took a polish to this and I brought it back, this is a very nice 2-stage pearl orange paint. I thought it was Laverda orange at one point, but no, it's a custom color. And it's great. It's missing its emblem up here. I'll have to find something like that. There are a few scrapes and chips. Like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do about this chip that somebody's painted in silver here, or this one up here. Yeah, and someone seems to have blocked off the vent too. That's interesting. This is the vent, the tank vent, and someone's put a screw in it. And we're going to have to pull that out and put a hose on it, because I don't like seeing blocked vents. It means the bike's not going to run well. Yeah, so some other things. A nice upgrade is the Corbin seat. The Koni shocks here are in great shape. They dampen really well. There's no leaking whatsoever. There's no pitting on the chrome. Yeah, normally this would be all pitted, even if the bike was used. If it was a Northeast bike, it would be shiny up to a certain point and then start to pit there. No, this was in dry Texas, man. So the thing we have to watch for instead are the bushings. Like if you look in here, there's a bump stop, and the bump stop's got a few like cracks in it, from drying out. It still feels soft and rubbery, but so that's good. And these are nice adjustable shocks too, by the way. They have an adjustment knob right here for rebound and dampening, in addition to the height adjustment, the preload. I shouldn't say height adjustment. These are preload. Unfortunately, the Koni decal has sort of worn away. It's dried out in the sun. Faded, that's the word I'm looking for. So we're going to have to do something about that. just to bring it back. It's not hard to find a decal. These tires are Sport Demons, very good Pirellis. They're a little on the harder side, but they have no weather cracking whatsoever. And actually, Dylan from Throttle Company was looking at this bike with me after I had purchased it. And he and I are kind of going back and forth about how old they are. I think they're 2020. He thinks they're 2010. And the reason is because they have the 0 as the last digit, but in 2010, they would have had, what do you call it? A different marking than 2020. No, I'm sorry. 2010 and 2020, since they changed how they mark tires, have the same marking, so it's kind of hard to tell. He may be right on this. They still have some. This is fully aired up, by the way, but this still has some give and some softness to it, like it's still a rubber tire. It's not rock hard like you find in some bikes, but either way, at some point, it has a lot of tread life left. This was almost a new tire. Look at this. It's got the things are still on them on the side, so nobody's really leaned this over that much. If they were new tires in 2010, that would make sense. But overall, what other things? Yeah, the rear brakes work, and they're not leaking, but I'm fairly certain this is old fluid in here that we're going to find. This is probably not the cleanest stuff. Let's see. I wish I had that's not terrible. I would flush this anyway, just because it's cheap and easy insurance, But the nice part is there's no leaks here. There's no leaks anywhere to the caliper. You press on this, the caliper works. So that's a good sign. I have noticed that the previous owner did some ease of visual aid modifications. So they painted the fuel tap white so you could spot it easier. The gas door is kind of an interesting one. I'm not sure what it's off of. I don't know if it's originally off this bike, but the lock broke. And so they just put a plastic plug in here, and then they put a magnet on the backside. So it magnetizes to the gas cap that's there and locks it down. Based on how it sits, I'm not sure that it's a SP2 correct gas door. It sits kind of funky, but it's close enough. You can see they painted in the SP very badly with look like model paint. The Moto Guzzi emblem has pretty much been stripped of most of its paint, and it was a bad repaint anyway. Same thing with the side covers. If you look, someone has put some goop on the back of it, and all of these pegs have goop on them because these rubbers shrank. And in this case, the rubber's gone, and you just sort of wedge it here. And there's some tacky thing here to hold the side cover in place. And that's because, this stuff, it tend to blew away on the highway if you weren't paying attention to it and the rubber shrank. There's ways to fix it now, and we'll probably do that. These relays are kind of interesting. But yeah, you can see it's a very filthy motorcycle. And he painted in the white here, and again, it's not very pretty. And someone painted this factory-looking black stripe. The SPs have a stripe that looks like this that follows the tank contour here. But this one's done in rattle can, right? And it comes off, actually, with acetone. I have some lacquer thinner here, actually. And this is how I know that the underneath is two-stage, is because it's not really affected by the lacquer thinner as the same way that this black stripe is. So if I take a little bit of lacquer thinner on a rag right here, and I just go right here, yeah, I can make that stripe disappear. And I probably should, because I think it looks better without it, to tell you the truth. I'm not a fan of this black stripe. But yeah, you see how this is all unaffected? that's a real hard 2K clear coat. This is not. This is somebody's, black spray job that they did poorly. And we'll fix that. I hate it so much, I'm going to take it off. And on top of that, look at how filthy the tank is underneath here. Biggest hurdle we have is the fuel system and the ignition system, however. So we have our distributor right in here. It looks like to be an electronic distributor. It makes sense for 87. But somebody dual plugged these heads. There's a spark plug. You can kind of see it right at the top there. There's a second spark plug. But this first spark plug, this is non-functional. And actually, if you come around here, you can see, let's pop this cover off. Somebody spent the money and put very nice Dyna 5 ohm coils, which are the correct coils if you're going to run a dual plug Guzzi head on a bike like this. Here's your one coil here. This is number 1, I think, and this is number 2. So this goes over to the right side. This goes over to the left side. So this is part of the upgrades that they made, that somebody did to this bike. The bike has dual plug heads. That's a huge upgrade. Has K&N pod filters. I just see Guzzis with these all the time. I'm not sure if there's an actual advantage to it or not, but they seem to all have them. And then in here, we have the problem with the fuel, and that is, it's leaking. There's a collecting right there. But also, look at this, where it's leaking from. This is a real cockamamie job. So what we have here are PHF 30s. Those are 30 millimeter Del Orto carbs. They're the correct carbs for this bike. So this is absolutely the right one. And the D here, I don't know if you can see the markings here, PHF 30 millimeter, and then D, Dinestra Italiano, for right, which means if we walk over here and we look at the carb, we will see that the carb markings are on the other side of the carb, and this may actually be another right side carb on the left side. Because normally these would be marked Sinistra, PHF 30S, Sinistra, sinister, left. If you ever want to know where sinister comes from, it comes from Italian, sinistra, meaning left hand. So I think somebody put a right-hand carb on this one. It's not a problem to me because it makes the choke easier to get to, but it is a problem because it makes the fuel inlet on the other side kind of difficult. Now, why is this all weird and janky like this? Well, I don't know if you can see in there. Guzzis have to have a crossover vent between the two petcocks. There's two petcocks, one on each side, and you can't just run a fuel line to each carb and call it a day, because there's a large hump in the center of these tanks. So when you lean the bike over, you can end up, if you're low on fuel, you can end up starving your cylinder for fuel, and then you got bigger problems. So they come with this big X crossover pipe, and that's the way that they keep constant gravity feed fuel pressure on it. But if you look around at this particular junction, they went from the petcock right here, here's the line, into a T intersection. The T intersection to one of these cheap AutoZone, or not AutoZone, but auto store from the 70s plastic filters, looks like a coffee strainer, down into another T section, and then out to the carbs. And why is that bad? Well, first of all, you don't get good gravity feed on that, right? You don't have the cross flow of two petcocks, feeding your fuel lines. What you have is two carbs trying to suck through the same straw in this section right here. So it's not going to, I shouldn't say suck because they're not vacuum. It's gravity feed, but you're getting half the gravity feed because you're having this thing make 180 degree of right turns, 290 degree right turns each time. It's just not, this is all the gravity. Instead of the weight of the tank, you're just getting the weight of the fuel in this single section. So you're running the floats dry, which means that you're starving it for fuel. Now I've popped the air filter off on this side. The air filter on the other side is a K&N, so that's another one of these upgrades. So just so we're counting and why I think this is a good deal in terms of condition, the bike has dual plug heads. The bike has K&N filters, which are nice filters. It doesn't have crappy MGO filters. It has 5 ohm Dyna coils, which are high quality coils. And then something else down here, someone told me, it's probably easier to see on this side. Someone told me that this is an extended sump oil pan, that this has a deep sump in it because it has this spacer here. I don't know if that's true. If you're a Guzzi person and you know, get at me in the comments, let me know. I think these are also FIAM horns. I don't know that these are the stock horns for this bike. They could be, but they look like the, FIAAM horns that they used to sell, and they still sell they're like car horns, very loud. There's a steering dampener. I don't know if that's factory or not. I think it is, actually. But it's nice, but condition-wise, somebody painted it silver. It looks like it was painted red at one point, so maybe off a different bike. Yeah, the fairing missing is obviously a big knock against condition, because even though it has the original front fender and the fork brace, it does not have the original fairing. So someone looking for an original, nice, restored bike, this is not their bike. Some other weird, janky modifications. Here's how you do your trip reset. It's frozen at the moment, so you can't really turn it. But when the fairing was replaced, the stock trip reset no longer was reachable, so they made something up. Other nice upgrade is it does have braided brake lines, very nice braided brake lines too. These are linked brakes, so when you pull the lever, it's only the left side, and then when you step on the pedal, it's supposed to be the rear and the front right. But other condition issues that we have, more ugly paint. Like this guy painted the dipstick, which I just can't get in. There's paint floating around in that oil pan right now that's driving me insane. All these little white paint marker touch-ups that were not done very well. Little things here and there, right? It does have the original mirrors. I think these are the original mirrors because they're gasketed, but they could be reproductions. Somebody put on those fisheye things you get in an auto parts store to help see a little bit better. These are the stock controls, and from what I can tell, they all work. The dash is a little bit of a mixed bag here. That is a Vegala gauge. The right is the correct speedometer for this bike. It is accurate. Same thing with the charging gauge. The clock is from something else. I don't even know if it's a motorcycle clock. But the tack is not from this bike. And I don't even know if it's from a Moto Guzzi. Now, I do know that the idiot lights all work, because when you turn them on, they light up, and even the turn signal ones work. They just don't flash. Now if I turn on the brights and the dash lights, you can barely see the brights go on. But take my word for it, it comes on. Oh, those are car horns. They're loud too. Wow. So yeah, all the switchgear works, which is highly unusual in this. This was some, Italian electronics at its finest, Magneti Marelli in the 80s. So think reliability of an 80s Ferrari. Something else. These have the stock pipes that are in immaculately good shape. I just love to see stock pipes. I love to see stock pipes that aren't super dented. La Franconi made the original pipes for Moto Guzzis, right? But these have the actual Moto Guzzi part numbers on them right here, T14, but they say La Franconi right here, which is great. And that's why they sound great. What else can I tell you about condition? Yeah, you can see. So a lot of times you find stuff like this because Moto Guzzis were very hard to get parts for in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. You had to wait weeks to get factory parts. It was very difficult to, keep one service. So a lot of people who were diehard Moto Guzzi fans, they had to really work at making sure they could get their bikes, keep their bikes on the road. And they did so in any way possible. And they like keeping them nice, you know. It's obvious this bike fell over at one point because the bracket on this side is broken, and this is a Honda passenger peg that's sort of stuck onto a pipe clamp. But just to give you an idea of how clean and how well this is going to clean up, let's just look at this really dusty area right here. And I'm just going to hit it with this rag. And you'll see that this is a gem hiding underneath here. You know. And this is why I think we got a great deal, is when you look at it, let me get out of the way. Here. You can see, look, this cleans up really nicely. There's no paint chips in this. There's no damage here. You know, you can just wipe this away and the whole bike is going to shine up like it's a jewel. You know, and I think that's going to make a big difference because I'm not having to rechrome anything. I'm not having to repaint a lot. It's just going to, you know, clean up and look fantastic. But it's going to take a little bit of elbow grease and some time, right? So that's where we are on condition. I'd say it's probably a 6 out of 10, thereabouts. But one of the first things I want to do is I want to fix this leaking fuel problem, and I want to fix this spark plug issue and ignition issue so that we can fire it up and you can hear it run. And you can see that it does, in fact, actually operate like a motorcycle. So let's get to work on that. All right, so we're going to start removing this fuel line here. And we may even test the petcocks without the line on it. It's nice that they put actual hose clamps on the ones to the petcocks. I think that why do I think they changed this to a right carb? Yeah. To a right side carb. I don't know. I think it may have had an issue with the left carb, and the right carb was all they could find. These bikes were hard to get parts for a while, and so it was probably all the person could find to get the bike running again. It's not an issue. The only problem with it is that the choke's on the outside and the fuel inlet's on the...
I told you, he only used one choke.
Yeah, he only uses... Mark Etheridge only starts them on the left side choke.
On that side choke.
Yeah. So it actually makes the choke easier, but it just makes the fuel line harder to get to because you have to work from underneath here. So let's pull out what we can here. I may have to snip. These have... somebody put zip ties on to hold the fuel lines onto the...
Yeah, that's why it's leaking.
Yeah, well, that's not the only reason why, but it's certainly one of the reasons why. But yeah, this hose clamp wasn't even tight. But it didn't matter because it wasn't leaking from this part. Typically, these don't leak that much there anyway. All right, so that's that. And then this fat lot of good that's doing anything. And now I'm covered in gas. And then let's see if we can get this one off here.
Oh, it's pouring out.
Yep. It's pouring out. Hey, gas is a solvent. It cleans things up.
Yeah, but I don't want to set fire to the room.
Well, it's a good thing we're not running right now then. Let me see if I can get this off. Oh, slides right off. Yeah, I don't think these were even the right size for this because these just slid right off. And let's get this out of here. And you can see why this was a bad idea. So here's the lower section of the T. Oh, and these are all plastic. These are vacuum lines. Even better. Whoever did this didn't even use real fittings. They used vacuum fittings. Amateurs. Amateurs all around. So one of the things we're going to do here is we are going to, well, now stock Moto Guzzi, you have this really fancy crimped X crossover pipe. But we're not fancy, and it takes weeks to get one of those, and I want this bike to run today. So Amazon dropped off these 4-square connectors, which pretty much do the same thing the stock Guzzi ones did, right? And we're going to hook this up to some clear fuel line so that we can see what's going on in condition of our fuel system while we're working on it. We may replace this later, but yeah, for the time being, we're going to use this and get our fuel system operational so that when we start the bike, it runs off the fuel that's in the tank. All right, let me just start cutting lines. So here we are, and it's not the cleanest, but it is a 4-cross bar, which will feed the fuel to the carburetors so that we can actually get pure gravity fed fuel, and it doesn't leak and there's no filter, and then we can see what's actually going on here. Unfortunately, I did not tighten up one of these things enough, so let me get on that and then we'll start it. All right, so now it's all tightened up, not leaking, and we're going to start it and see how we do. Now,
We gotta get the other cylinders in.
yeah, we're going to get the other cylinder running in a second. Let's see if we can get it started first. Here's the
What do you mean? Get
choke.
it started?
I'm talking on the video, Dad. We got the choke up, and let's see if she starts under her own power. So, power on, starter button, and it starts up and it runs. Now, this is ice cold. This is not doing anything but pumping air. But this one, that's super hot. That's running good. So now we need to. Oh, fuel's off.
Yeah, the fuel is
Okay, so we'll just leave it off for now. Now we got to fix the plugs on this, and that'll get us to the next step, which is firing both cylinders and running. And then it's a running motorcycle again. So let's get on that. So I think we've hit a good stopping point for tonight.
Is the,
We,
is
what?
the gasoline still leaking out?
No, it's fine. The
Okay.
gas is fine. So we've hit a good stopping point for tonight. We took the black stripes off the side of the tank. We hooked up fuel. We took the luggage rack off, so now the bike looks a lot sleeker, especially from the back end here. You know, still a lot to do. There's electronics we need to do. We need to get the plugs working on the right cylinder here so that it fires off both cylinders, although now it does start up on its own off gasoline, at least from the left carb. And yeah, so next is going to be some electrical work. We'll get the signals on and working, and maybe clean up that front end too. Let's see how it goes. There's still a lot to be done, but in the end, I think we're doing really well. And I think the bike's actually a little bit prettier without those stripes. Certainly the paint is nicer. But yeah, we polished up the tank a little bit. No compounding, but just some ceramic coat. Took out all the scratches on it. So it looks really nice and glossy now. This thing's going to pop in the sun. But that's it for part 1. And join us next time for part 2, where hopefully she runs on both cylinders. So thanks again for watching Mechanical Advantage Garage and part 1, where Dad and I stumble our way through making this Moto Guzzi seem like a good deal, because still think it is. You know, I had a lot of fun in buying that at Mecum. Actually, Dad had a lot of fun buying it because he's the one who bid on it, and he's the one who won it. And you know, I just have it in my garage so that we can use the space to make it run again and see what's going to happen. So this is the end of part 1. Part 1 was mostly fuel and knock some of the dirt off of it and clean it up. And part 2, I think we're going to do some electrical work and then part 3 will handle the brakes and controls, things like cables. At least this is how I'm just planning it out in my head, because we want to get the right cylinder running that has no spark power to it right now. Left cylinder seems to work fine. I think there's something janky going on with the throttle cables. I may have to order a throttle for this or do something. I did end up ordering the factory crossover. It's going to take like 2 weeks to get in, so we're going to just keep using what we have for now just to make it run. And when the part does come in, then I will put the correct parts in the bike. But overall, I think, especially in this area, it looks a lot cleaner without the bag mounts. I got to find a way to maybe make this fairing sit down a little lower, but the dash for the bike is just right up against the top of the windscreen. So I don't know what I'm going to do. It just looks funny to me. But I do like how the black stripe is no longer there. I think the bike looks better without it. So yeah, we're going to just keep trucking away, make this thing look cooler and cooler, and ride and run and make all the motorcycle sounds and do all the motorcycle things, and welcome along for the ride. So as always, hit like, hit subscribe. If you like what you see, say something in the comments. If you don't like what you see, say something in the comments, and that's it. I will see you next episode.